I think that they are green-lighting assassination.
This is the United Uprising channel. Welcome to today's show. I need to cover Donald Trump yet again because every time we hear something in the media, you have to understand that repetition is the key to mind control. They keep repeating narratives before they actually happen. This desensitizes the audience. By desensitizing the audience, it's one of the most basic forms of mind control in addition to repetition. By doing that, when these events happen, the audience accepts these events. There isn't any kind of actual natural occurring thing that occurs from these. They accept these events because they convince them that they're eventually going to happen when they actually do happen. They use desensitization all the time in our society. We've been so desensitized, just like I mentioned in a previous video, right? We've gotten to the point where people are accepting everybody leaving YouTube and everybody because they just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. They eventually want you to accept. They want you to comply. They want you to do what they're trying to get you to do. And eventually with a Donald Trump assassination, because we constantly are hearing references to this. I've covered it so many times in the past. And again, it is back in the spotlight where we have a person in Congress. Okay, this is the first. A person in Congress, Matt Gaetz, who plays the role. Matt Gaetz is a lot of, obviously all these guys in Congress are hand-selected and put there, right? Gaetz has been playing this huge role of supposedly being an a right-wing extremist. He's anti all the insanity. So people naturally are getting sucked into people like Gaetz and the extreme alt-right politicians because when you start doing all these insane things that they're doing in Congress, they know that people are going to naturally be herded in and lean towards these conservatives that look like they're going to come in and save the day and stop this stuff from happening. But they're not. All they're doing is gaslighting their audience one way or the other. And Matt Gaetz came out and he said that the Democrats in Congress and the mainstream media are green lighting a Trump assassination. Listen to this, and then I'll show you all the predictive programming so you can see for yourself how often they've referenced this.
First, could you react? It seems to be the Democrats were issued their talking points over the weekend, and they can't defend Biden anymore. And so all they're saying is Donald Trump, Nazi, 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 fascism, dictatorship. It looks like that is their campaign platform for 2024.
I think it's even worse. I think that they are green-lighting assassination.
Yeah.
When you hear people talk about Trump as Hitler or as some sort of authoritarian tyrant, they're trying to justify violence against him and violence against his supporters. And it is sickening and un-American. I condemn it in the strongest possible terms. But they're done having a debate with us about trade policy or foreign policy or economic policy. We're just all so evil to our core, right, that we have to be vanquished from the debate. And that's where you really start to see societies erode and fall apart. And I want to engage our political opponents in the battle space of ideas, and yet they seem to be so eager to try to use these unprecedented tools for politics. And we see that through the criminal justice process, through the efforts to try to remove Trump from the ballot so he's not even considered in some jurisdictions. And the American people aren't going to stand for it.
What is the right response, Congressman Gaetz? I think you're right. If we have the likes of Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, we have, no Trump supporter, but we have Harvard emeritus professor Alan Dershowitz say they both fear for the life of the president. What is the right response, seeing that we have 11 and a half months to go?
Well, we have to win, and that is oftentimes, in service of this tactical plan. We need that, not allow ourselves to be outvoted, outballoted, even when a majority of the people want to see Trump elected. I worry about our election integrity efforts. I'm trying to bolster those by getting some of our sharpest operatives and attorneys engaged and right there on a hair trigger, because one thing we learned after the last election is that after a properly voted ballots get polluted with improperly voted ballots, there's not a judge in the land that will grant the remedies to go unwind that. So I'm laser focused on making sure in these critical jurisdictions They're not changing the rules or the practices in order to try to disrupt what I think will be a wave election for Donald Trump and Republicans. I think that they are green-lighting assassination.
So Gates is openly talking now. You know what I mean? This is unheard of for a politician to come out on a mainstream, television show, whatever it is, internet show, streaming show, podcast, and talk openly about how we're getting closer and closer to that. At the same time, what we're seeing is the liberal media talking about how we're getting closer to a dictatorship, right? If Trump goes in office, it'd be a dictatorship. The simple fact that everybody needs to understand is that our government in the United States of America is fully sold out. They've sold us out. They've been fully compromised, the left and the right, okay? Obviously, all the conservatives look and they're like, we're in a dictatorship right now. We have no free speech. We have this and we have that. Okay, they're preparing you for a full-on dictatorship.
Today, when you think about it, former Speaker McCarthy lost his post because of MAGA insurgents. Cheney lost her entire job and political career, at least as far as Congress is concerned, all because she stood up against Trump's coup. When it occurred in the days after, she was clear on the floor of the House and in the impeachment process that we cannot sit by and allow coups and attacks on democracy in this country. That was the baseline. That was it. That proved to be too much in the clash between the loser of the 2020 race and the MAGA fever in Republican districts. Following that fever, many party elites turned on Cheney. She went to co-chair the January 6th committee, which investigated that insurrection. She's now making headlines like this with the new book. She's speaking out in these interviews. I should mention she will join Rachel here on MSNBC in a few hours tonight and join Nicole tomorrow. And here was Cheney this morning on Trump's threat and her former colleagues in Congress.
People who say, well, if he's elected, it's not that dangerous because we have all of these checks and balances, don't fully understand the extent to which the Republicans in Congress today have been co-opted. One of the things that we see happening today is a sort of a sleepwalking into dictatorship in the United States.
Dictatorship in the United States. That is a strong warning. To many, that word, that concept, that idea evokes something that is viewed as external to the U.S., of leaders somewhere else or in some other time, some other era. That habit of thinking is wrong. It's why there are entire books about how it can, quote, happen here, to push Americans to understand the threat and the way both democracies and dictatorships operate. It's why historians are now comparing what Donald Trump is saying in public on the campaign trail to dictators like Mussolini, when he dehumanizes our fellow citizens in this country as, quote, vermin who must be rooted out. And Cheney, who staked her career on this, is saying this threat is now here. And she is carefully and precisely warning how she views Donald Trump as a would-be dictator like Mussolini or Mao, that if he does win next year, based on everything she's learned, and remember the high level of the Republican Party that she reached, she is now certain, based on the evidence, he would try to then stay in power forever.
Do you believe if Donald Trump were elected next year that he would try to stay in office beyond a second term? That he would never leave office?
There's no question.
You think he would try to stay in power forever?
Absolutely.
They're preparing you for it. People don't realize they're being desensitized into accepting a dictatorship, which is eventually what they're going to announce this as, in a sense. I mean, they're not even going to come out and say, hey, it's a dictatorship, but we're already in one. Trump did nothing when he was in office to give us our rights back. In fact, most of our rights were stripped when he was in office, as far as free speech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We saw him with Operation Warp Speed. So that should be enough for people to realize that they're working together and they're using Trump as the ultimate herder. Because anything that happens with Trump, okay, if you think about this in the past, people would just vote, right? Didn't you hear the interview? Some of you might have heard recently, The Rock and Joe Rogan talking about, hey, back when we were kids, who cares if you were a Republican or a Democrat? Well, the reason that they care now, people care, is because they're being massively gaslighted into this. So they're making things so crazy that conservatives are leaning towards Trump, hoping that he's going to come in and stop this chaos from continuing. They're giving them no choice for the most part. And then Trump says all the right things. So we all feel like we don't have a voice anymore, right? The majority of people who are not psychotic liberals don't feel like they have a voice because they're taking voices away. So every time, if you take yourself out of this and you listen to Trump when he talks, we all could watch him talk and laugh because some of the stuff he says is hilarious. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that some of the stuff I don't. Now, some of you might not find hilarious. Some of the stuff he says I do laugh at, but I also know what they're trying to do. So I could see, oh my goodness, this is why people are being herded so heavily into this guy, because never before have people been so supportive of a political figure. Now, this is a totally different government, a totally different world now than it was 30 years ago. So what they're doing is Trump is standing against, that's the role he's playing. He's standing against the insanity. He's trying to get America back to the way it was, which is what most people want. And of course, what most people really want is just be left alone, right? Most people just want to be left alone, and the government will not leave them alone. In fact, Democrats, who are communists want to be a part of your everyday life. They want to control every single thing you do. And of course, that goes into the carbon footprint, et cetera. So people are just showing more and more support to Trump because they feel like they don't have any other choice, because they're going, well, what other choice do we have? He's the only one that can get my life back to normal. But in reality, the only choice that we do have is if the citizens band together and stop this from happening, which would mean you get rid of the mindset of the left and the right, and you go and you do something about this and take this country back, because that's what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are here to do. That's what the whole purpose is that the government doesn't go rogue. Unfortunately, the government's gone rogue, and now with the way technology is, they could constantly do psyops and psychological operations on people's minds. And this could be the biggest one of all, because think about a Trump assassination, what it would do in this country. One way or the other. This 2024 is huge, one way or the other. It's probably the biggest year for all of us since we've been alive. Because the event that comes out of this, whether they place Trump back in power, you know that eventually either an assassination is coming or World War III. On the flip side of it, if Biden stays in and they don't do something to Trump, nobody will believe that he actually won. So either way, chaos will ensue, but nothing would be greater than some type of an assassination of Trump, because everybody would say, okay, the government themselves took out Trump. This would make Trump a martyr, which would make more and more people supportive and obsessive over him. Again, think of some of the videos I've done, even Matthew Perry, right, dying. Look at how obsessive people get when somebody dies. They love the person more than they could have ever imagined loving. Nobody was clamoring over Matthew Perry while he was alive. Matthew Perry dies, boom, everybody's crying, their lives have changed. This is what happens to human beings. So just imagine if they do a fake assassination, again, a fake one. Trump is one of them. But fine, if you don't want to believe that, that's fine. You don't think that he's not part of the deep state, fine. But if they do that for hurting mechanisms and hurting reasons only, they can create some of the biggest psyops we could ever possibly imagine. They will create all sorts of psyops with anyone they deem alt-right, which is why they've been so hell-bent on lumping me and you into this alt-right movement. Okay? By doing that and by taking conspiracies and moving it into the alt-right, nothing that we say will prove to anyone out there that we're not a part of MAGA, that we're not a part of alt-right. They'll automatically lump us in. For example, if all of us got together, say, how many people, now compared to used to, I probably get like 10,000 maybe on a video, right? Let's say, and that means it's not a great number, but that's a loyal amount of people who watch, because that number is every single channel, 8 to 10,000 a video. Used to be a lot more, but that means, let's say we get 5,000 people out of that. And all of us were like, all right, we've had enough. Let's all live Amish style together where we all work and we do. Okay, it sounds like a great idea, right? Well, it will never occur. Because what they would do is they would create a mass false flag or cyber around us. And all they would have to do because if you said, oh, look at these people, they don't believe in Trump, they're not Trump supporters, they just want to live, away from all the drama, people will go, oh, okay, who cares? They bought land, they're living out there, let them do what they want. But if we all did that, and then they said, well, they're MAGA supporters, oh, they listen to alt-right conspiracies, et cetera, people would say that we're a terrorist group living in this country, and they would come wipe us out, and everybody would cheer to have us wiped out. If they didn't have that narrative around us, and we were just out there sitting there and fishing and farming and everything else, people would be like, who cares? They're not bothering anybody. If that's what they want to do, let them do that. It's America. It's a free country. So that's why the cute thing and everything else is so important, because it creates this facade in people's minds. So when they want to execute people like us, they'll just be able to, because they've convinced people that we're extreme, that we're MAGA. And the majority of people, like me, which is all of you for the most part, I think we're all pretty like-minded. I know some of you believe in Trump and want to believe in Trump, and that's perfectly fine. The reason I warn against it is so that you don't get hurted, because that's what's coming out of this. Okay, that's exactly what they have planned, is to herd people using these politicians as influencers. They're the biggest influencers we've ever seen. We've never seen somebody like Donald Trump. We've talked about Kim Kardashian and all these other celebrities. Nobody has had persuasion influence like Trump. And of course, you could think about all the other stuff tied into it with with guns, et cetera, and the January 6th, which was a precursor for something. So back to the story, okay? This is what we're headed towards. They're telling us that something is coming. Okay, that's my belief. And if it isn't the assassination, a fake assassination where they send Trump off to the land of bagels where he'll reside the rest of his days because that's where everybody ends up going, would be the perfect thing to do. And it makes the most sense because then they keep Biden in office. It'll cause just chaos. What they want to do is cause chaos. That's the point, right? Order out of chaos is their motto. So what would create the most possible chaos would be that. Because people will have enough. They'll say, okay, we have to do something about this government. They want the government destroyed. They want you to uprise against it because they already have the globalist world order in place. So they have to destroy everything, right? And they're going to have you destroy it. And people out there are like, well, then what are you calling for? What are you saying this? What are you saying that? Well, really, people just stop complying. If everybody went Amish and shut their tech off, they'd have no power over anybody's minds, right? So the psychological stuff with Trump and an assassination has been rampant for the last 6-7 years.
Next stage is violence. Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick.
Latest on that alleged plan to assassinate Donald Trump. This man grabbed by police at a packed rally in Las Vegas, and ABC's Pierre Thomas has new details in Washington for us. Pierre, good morning.
Good morning, David. This young man allegedly had been targeting Trump for some time. Police say planning to kill him for months.
Moments after Donald Trump took the stage at a rally at the Treasure Island Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas last weekend, a young man approached a police officer stationed at the event and asked for an autograph. According to police, a plan to assassinate Trump was underway.
By the way, folks, while we're at it, great. Thank you for the warning.
Johnny Depp on stage at a music festival in the UK when, apparently speaking in jest, he referred to assassinating President Trump. When Depp brings up President Trump's name, the audience cheers.
I think he needs help. I don't know. A lot of wonderful dark places he could go.
Then Depp said this.
By the way, this is going to be in the press. It'll be horrible. When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
Thank you, Amy. I'm just going to head on over here.
Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
It's an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection. Check out the unbuttoned overcoat and red tie that hangs over his waist. It's a staging of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar that is outraging many. It all comes on the heels of that outrageous image of Kathy Griffin holding the severed head made to look like Trump. She cried during a news conference where she was both defiant and apologetic.
That apology absolutely stands. I feel horrible.
As the cast took its bow, the audience applauded with a standing ovation.
Right, so on top of that, what have we seen? We've seen Snoop Dogg, doing stuff in his videos. We've seen Kathy, what is her name? Kathy Griffin holding up Trump's decapitated head. It's almost like every single month. Eminem has been involved. Every single month, a celebrity is either singing or talking about doing a wicked act to the former president of the United States, or I should say, to Donald Trump. Right? Which again is by design because they're hurting you psychologically into all this stuff. Now, the other thing we could look at when it comes to this is what I've constantly shown you, which is the character in the movie The Dead Zone, where the president, who is played by Martin Sheen, is literally, Donald Trump is playing the same exact character. Okay, and in that movie, of course, there's an assassination attempt on him, and he holds up a baby in front, and then eventually loses out on becoming president. But here's a little bit of that predictive programming as well.
You got to stay in shape all the time with those boys. You can't turn your back on them. Stay in better shape than this country. What the hell is happening to this country? Anybody tell me what the hell is going on? Papers right here on the front
Believe this
page.
guy? He's just getting warmed up. Can you vote for him, John? And vote against this turkey. He's dangerous. A real man of the people. That's what it acts. Can't they see through this guy?
I'm challenging you right here and now to join me, to join a growing army.
Do it, General.
You're insane. Do it. You're not the voice of the people. I am the voice of the people. The people speak through me, not you. Do it.
Complete the sequence, Mr. President.
Not necessary, Mr. President. We have a diplomatic solution.
The missiles are flying.
The most exciting, the most important case. Johnny!
So really the writing is becoming it's on the wall for something in 2024. Everybody out there can feel it. It's just a question of how do they play it. They could always do the assassination thing with Trump and put him in office. Now, the other thing they're saying is that Trump, like I showed you, Trump is in office. He's never going to leave office. Okay, Trump is going to stay in office no matter what. If he goes in, and it's really hilarious because currently what we have is a dictatorship. And I'm not saying based on, liberals or communists, right? These people never want out of power. They want everything. I mean, the psychotic mindset that they have, and then they think that this is a democracy when it's really a republic. I mean, it's utter insanity. So I can understand why people support Trump because this is so frustrating. But you have to realize at the end of the day that he is one of them. And all these restrictions and Operation Warp Speed came in under his watch because they were still trying to hurt. Why do you think Trump has stepped away from talking about the potion now? Why? Because they realize that if he loses steam with the hurting of his audience, that's a problem. So he needs to continually hurt his audience so that they could lead them the way they want to lead them. And again, only Donald Trump would be able to lead. If he does survive and they don't do a fake assassination, only Donald Trump will be able to lead people into blue and red states based on their obsession with him and following theirs and not believing that this government is set up anymore. And the truth is that it's not set up anymore. But whatever the result is that comes out of this is what they want you to do. That's what I warn about. So whatever occurs and Biden, say he goes in, they're like, oh, Biden's won. Nobody's going to believe it, right? So if Trump is still alive and they don't do a fake assassination, well, then they come out and they say, okay, the government's clearly rigged. Everything's rigged. And everybody will be so frustrated this time around with the prices of everything, all the intense stuff they've done over the last 4 years, that they'll literally sit there and they'll say, okay, we're going to go, we need to go into civil war. We need to switch states. Everybody needs to be in one state with there'll be the Trump supporter politicians and the Democrats. That's what we're headed towards. So it's going to be utter chaos. Now, somebody, if they do a fake assassination, would obviously have to step in for Trump and take Trump's place, which could be his son. Some people believe Kushner. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. But just keep an eye on these narratives and realize that nothing is going to go seemingly smoothly in 2024. Okay? Things are really quiet right now because they're giving you a little bit of a breather. Okay? They're taking their foot off the pedal with the potion because the big event is coming. The big event is coming. If they hit you every 2 seconds, then you start becoming desensitized. They have a big thing planned in 2024. Yes, the events are happening with the guns, etc., that we constantly hear about, but something big is coming in 2024 out of this election. It'll be the biggest psyop we've ever seen, and this is going to lead to a massive event in this country as far as the structure and formation of our government. The way that it's in place, it's all going to come crashing down, okay? And they're going to use the media. Again, it's funny. You have the president in power. When Trump was in power, the media was just going after him. I mean, obviously, without the mainstream media, really the herding mechanism gets shut off. But the internet, too. That's why, all these agencies, these government agencies have reached out to social influencers and try to get them to talk their narrative talking points. Because they just need to keep hitting you with the same stuff. They know exactly how mind control works. So anyway, I wanted to cover the story because we have Matt Gaetz going out there talking about an assassination, which is just unheard of. This is unheard of. For those of you that are teenagers, this is not normal. You know, if even the mention of this type of stuff would have somebody arrested, even a politician hinting at it could possibly happen. A person on national television, on the news, talking about these types of things, or et cetera, or Snoop Dogg or Madonna, they'd be arrested, right? There's programming in place here. Sigil Magic tell you this stuff before they actually do it. And this is how they obviously play with your mind and your emotions, which is what this really is all about. So they want to keep you herded in this. So let's keep an eye on these stories. I wanted to cover it. People have been asking me again to cover some stuff with Trump because there's some new people here who are Trump supporters and they don't realize that they're all controlled. And right now, all it's about when they're in full, they have full control. So people are like, so what's the point of all this stuff? Because they have to convince you of this. They have to convince you that this is right, this is wrong, that's wrong, go this way, go that way. Otherwise, if they're not doing that, and they just came out and they're like, we are now fully owned by China, we are no longer America, we're burning the Bill of Rights on TV tonight and the Constitution, literally people would uprise in the streets. Nobody would stand for it. So they have to convince you that you're destroying the Constitution, you're destroying the Bill of Rights, we're all responsible, chaos here, chaos there, all ensued by these, the groups that are following these political heads, right? The right looks at the insanity of the liberals, which is utter insanity. Talk about castrating kids and all that stuff. They look at the other side as extremely dangerous threats to the new Al-Qaeda. Okay, so they're doing this properly because people are falling for it. And then if they stop falling for it, and if these people went the route to just say, hey, guess what? We decided we're a dictatorship. We're not working for you anymore. We're a world order. We're getting rid of the House. We're getting rid of the Senate. We're burning the Constitution tonight, live at 8 o'clock. Okay, then an uprising would actually occur because even the libs wouldn't stand for it. They have to be convinced into this stuff, and that's how it works. It's a fake. They are building and creating a fake simulation of what's really going on in our minds. Really, it is a matrix. So that's what's going on. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all well. God bless you as always and your families.